The Bones and Bobbins podcast is now on Patreon. Would you like access to bonus episodes, digital extras, exclusive merch and more? Then join us in the Curiosity Shop at patreon.com/bonesandbobbins.
Yay!
Woohoo!
Your generous support helps make the show happen and will also earn you our very eternal gratitude and entry into our private Patreon-only Facebook group where only delightful people are.
Seriously, it is the best little corner of Facebook. I will fight anyone that says otherwise.
It's really true. It is always pleasant, and I am never worried about clicking on it.
Seriously, never.
Nope. And honestly, that's saying something. For Facebook,
It really is.
in a dusty old shop on a forgotten old street, you'll find two witches with books 3 boxes deep. Next to rusty old needles and faded red thread, you'll come in for yarn, but leave with pigments instead. Whether poisons or patterns, we're always discreet, where creepy and crafty and morbidity meet. Welcome to the Bones and Bobbins podcast. Yeah, so, hello, morbid makers. We are your slightly creepy,
Mildly disconcerting,
somewhat sinister,
delightfully discomposed,
opaquely odd,
merrily morbid.
marvelously misanthropic hosts.
And this is Bones and Bobbins, Season 2, Episode 24. All is artificial, all is bright.
I'm Haley from Red Handled Scissors and the Very Serious Crafts podcast, and I go by she and her.
Hi, I'm Natalie from Uber Dork Designs, an official true crime creative, and my pronouns are she, her.
All right.
Yes.
So, happy solstice.
Happy
That is when we're recording
solstice.
this.
It is indeed.
Yeah, we didn't even plan it.
No.
It just happened because of the calendar.
Dun, dun, dun.
That is precisely the sound I was about to make, so there we are. Yeah.
Yay. So how you doing?
Well, I'm a little mad because bullshit COVID is ruining my holiday plans. My mom and I had to have a conversation, was it yesterday, the day before, I can't remember, wherein we decided that she was not going to fly to New York to visit me next week for Christmas. Which sucks, and I'm mad about it, but it was also absolutely the right thing to do. And I'm not, like, mad at either one of us or her or anything about it.
Right.
I'm just mad at the situation. I wish that we weren't all still in it. But it was the right thing, and my mom had been dreaming about it for 2 straight nights, and you listen to that.
Yeah.
Yep. So I get the spooky from my mom. And so, or at least that side of the family, and so we tend to listen to our guts when things like that happen.
Absolutely. Your mom's adorable.
She is adorable.
I'm
I hope I
sad
get
for
to
you.
see her soon.
I hope so too. I did my part. Yesterday I got boosted and flu shotted.
Nice.
So
Can't remember when I did that. I'm on a slightly earlier schedule than
Yeah.
most people because I got vaccinated so early. I got vaccinated in February last year for the first time. So, yeah. So that's good. We are a podcast that is fully vaxxed and boosted.
Yes.
And people listening, if you can also be fully vaxxed and or boosted, you should do that.
You should.
Because I'm kind of sick of this shit. Are you sick of this shit?
Seriously. I am.
Yeah.
I am sick of this shit, and I'm sick of people who don't think this shit's still here. Like,
I'm super not looking forward to the news cycles following Christmas.
Well, I know that a lot, that New York's aren't they starting to shut down some stuff? Like, didn't they shut part of Broadway down? And I'm guessing they're going to probably cancel Times Square for New Year's.
I haven't heard, but it definitely didn't happen last year.
They had it this year. They were saying it was going to be back with proof of vaccination. And such.
And it is an outdoor event.
True.
But it is an outdoor event that is crowded like a rush hour subway train is crowded.
Yeah, you're packed in there like that. It gives me almost anxiety hives to watch the people packed into there.
Oh, yeah. And that really is what the subway looks like during rush hour.
I don't know that I've ever done rush hour. I'm trying to think.
I've
never been on super. I've been in the subway late and seen the rodents of unusual size. I've checked off most of the subway bingo, I think, but I don't think I've ever been crammed in there during super rush hour.
I think my favorite thing to tick off of subway bingo, well, there are two things. Mm-hmm. People who surf the cars, which are people who are holding on to the cars on the outside.
Yeah.
It's a terrible idea and it will kill you.
Yes.
But, you're only young once. And seeing someone walking through the tunnels, through the window, while you're underground. That's always interesting. And sometimes it's not people who aren't supposed to be there. I mean, most of the time it is people who are living in the tunnels. But sometimes it's workers.
People.
You don't usually see the mole people because they are generally pretty light sensitive. So it's relatively rare that you would see them near a big light source.
That makes sense.
But the workers, if they're doing track work, the train, because it's an actual train, will blow its horn, and there are tiny notches cut out of the sides, and they stand in them, and they look like bodies in coffins. And you can go by, and you're very close to their faces.
Oh, gosh. That makes me nervous.
Makes me nervous, too, but it's also a good thing to know if you ever fall onto the tracks.
That is.
Yep. Also, if you ever fall onto the tracks and the train is coming and you can't get anywhere, lie flat between them with your face down because you will have clearance. The train will go over you, but you will probably be fine.
With my luck, I'd end up losing a booty.
Yeah, my butt sticks out pretty far. Yeah, well, I only know this because more than one person has saved someone having seizures by seeing them fall, having the train come, and laying their bodies on top of the person.
Oh, okay.
And covering them so they don't flail into the rails. Which is terrifying. I don't know how we got onto this subject. Let's get off of it.
Right.
I discovered, going further down into my ancestry rabbit hole, I have reached the knights and ladies portion of my past, and I am nearing medieval times. I'm in the Renaissance still, but mid-1500s at this moment.
That's amazing.
Yep. And I have 2 consecutive knights and ladies in at least one branch of the family.
I am amongst royalty.
I think you're probably amongst somebody's army. Because they were knighted, they weren't titled as far as I can tell. I don't know, I'm still doing the research. But who
It's exciting.
knows? Yeah, it's fun. And in a nod to the good people, I have learned that one branch of my maternal family line, the last name is Alfred, which means elf council in Old English.
Oh.
So you might be amongst the Fae.
Oh my goodness. I mean, it makes sense. I wouldn't fuck with you.
I wouldn't fuck with me either. But I also wouldn't fuck with the Fae because the good people, we like them.
Yes.
You don't want to mess with them.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anything else going on with you?
No. I mean, ending the crazy Etsy online holiday season.
You've been so busy.
I have, but I've kept up with like everything, which actually amazes me.
Yeah, that's
usually
great.
I'm pretty frantic and I don't have time to like do our annual, which we haven't done in a while, baking day, where we baked a bunch of stuff and we've managed to catch some lights.
Yeah, you've been being way festive.
Yeah,
I'm failing.
I am a sucker for this time of year. I'm a sucker for the lights and and all of this.
I like it too. I just have major depression.
And that's valid.
Yeah, and cats. I have 3 cats in a tiny apartment.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to wrap more Christmas lights around Great Aunt Frances and put presents under her.
That's
and
amazing.
Call it a day.
Ooh, I have to send you, maybe I'll post it in the notes, a TikTok of this person. Their family was too poor growing up to have a tree, so their mom made one out of an old refrigerator box. And it was like 2 that like scissor together and then painted it, and they put lights and ornaments on it, and it is the sweetest thing. And they didn't have time to get a tree this year, so they have the family cardboard tree.
Oh, I'm gonna cry about it.
Right?
Oh,
It's the
that's
sweetest
so
thing.
nice.
It is.
All
and I'm
right.
like, oh, now I want to save all of my boxes and make all the cardboard trees for all the people that don't have the trees.
Yeah. Oh. My husband made me a paper tree when we were dating because I didn't have one and I wanted one.
Oh, that is
very
amazing.
sweet. Yeah. So
That's a keeper.
I guess we should probably carry on before we go
True.
a million rabbit holes. We want to.
We want to.
Yeah.
But we're going to pause it and take a tiny quick break. Why? To thank all of our fantastic Curiosity Shop members over on Patreon. And if you join us, right now is where we'd give you your own personal. Totally
Personal?
Personal. I'm drinking a hot toddy because I have the chills and the aches from this shot. So expect some more.
Oh, I'm excited.
Personal, totally normal, and not at all creepy welcome. Because you're the best. They're the best.
They are the best. And you know what?
What?
We would totally drink hot toddies and go, you just deleted it.
No, I didn't. What?
Yes, you did.
What did I do? Oh, no.
She was deleting it as I was reading it.
Sorry.
Anyway, we would totally go drink hot toddies and also explore hidden old graveyards in the woods with you simultaneously.
Yes. And there's a tiny grave or cemetery in the middle of nowhere. Actually, no, graveyard. Not attached to a church. But people put Christmas lights. They put solar little Christmas lights on some of the graves, and I about cried.
Oh, I like it.
We'll start there. And if you want in on this fun, not only are you going to get some really great surprises that we're going to launch this year, but you're actually...
Eventually. We're really gonna.
You're going to get a huge backlog of Patreon-only episodes. Like, I want to say... I mean, we have at least 40, if not more. Including next week where we talk holiday mysteries of the unsolved variety.
It's true.
You know?
We learned about some things that we had never heard of.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
so.
Because weird shit happens in the sky. And sometimes it's a star, sometimes it's a comet, sometimes it's the second coming of the Lord. Who knows?
Sometimes you drink whiskey, go in your kitchen, and never return. Things happen.
They do. Note I didn't say which Lord. You can pick your Lord.
The flying
or
spaghetti
lady.
monster. Yeah, exactly.
Or deity. Pick your deity.
Yep.
Yeah.
So what you got for us today?
I am now on the wrong page. Because I am required to be on the wrong page at least once during this whole back and forth. And you deleted things, and so now I get to be on the wrong page.
Mayhem! I'm causing mayhem!
I love it. Today, once I get on the correct page where I have all my notes in front of me, here we are. I am going to continue on the current World War II kick that we've been having.
Yes.
And I'm going to tell you about how a World War II bomber pilot named Si Spiegel brought the world the artificial Christmas tree.
Yes! I love that. I'm here for that.
Yes. And I will start this off by saying this is my favorite of the origin stories of artificial Christmas trees. Artificial Christmas trees have been happening in various ways for a long time. But this is how the artificial Christmas tree as we know it today, as we would recognize it today, started. So, let me tell you about Si Spiegel, because he's fucking great. Si Spiegel became a war hero while flying his B-17 in raids over Berlin. But the rest of the story that I'm about to tell you could have easily not happened.
Okay.
Because I was reading this article by Lori Gwen Shapiro that appeared last week in the New York Times, and she painted a super fascinating picture of a man with approximately 1 million stories and a mind sharp enough to remember them in detail, but they are truly so over the top that if you didn't know they were real, you would be like, nah, too far.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in his conversations with Shapiro, Mr. Spiegel recalled being born into Jazz Age New York. I believe he was born in 1924.
Okay.
And, you know, when button-up knickers were still a thing. And he would witness his family's first telephone.
Oh.
He remembers getting his first zip fly pants. Because that was new. He would hear the radio transmissions the day Amelia Earhart vanished while flying over the Pacific.
Ooh.
At barely 18, he secretly ran off to join the army. He was a skinny kid with mechanical skills, and he was originally supposed to be a mechanic. But he didn't want to fight Hitler from the ground. So instead, with his eyes on the sky, he took a bus that carried him from Roosevelt Field to Mitchell Field. Both of those are in New York. And he was one of two people at the Mitchell Field recruitment office that day. And he had perfect vision.
Nope.
And the other person didn't.
There you go.
Yep. And so that was that. His life veered in a completely new direction that day, and off he went to pilot training, and he learned to fly a B-17 bomber, which is also known as the Flying Fortress. It's the thing you think of when you think of bomber planes.
Okay. I like that name, the Flying Fortress.
Yeah. It's quite something.
I recommend looking it up if it doesn't immediately come to mind, but I think that it probably will if you've ever considered World War II bombers. So, because he was kind of young and kind of sheltered, and he just wasn't really very, like, he wasn't a kid who got up to no good. And so when he was trained to fly the B-17 bomber, instead of partying with the rest of the people there, partying didn't really interest him. Instead, he met a pretty girl named Frankie Marie Smith, and he married her within a matter of weeks because the rules of time and dating don't exist when you're going to war.
Right. Aww.
I mean, that's just a fact. And unfortunately, his marriage would not last much beyond the war. But I do think that it probably helped quite a bit.
Right.
Especially, like, just the idea of knowing that you're coming home to someone.
Right.
Now, here's where we get to the part of why this entire rest of the story could have easily not happened at all. Because during a raid, a malfunction early in flight and then a bit of flak knocked out first one and then two of his 4 engines on his B-17 bomber. Which was not ideal.
No.
You could fly in formation with 3 engines. It was not possible in 2.
Oof.
And so...
Flak was no joke.
No. Not only was he in the air over Nazi territory...
Oh, gosh.
Mr. Spiegel was a Jewish pilot.
Oh, I was guessing that.
Yeah, and you didn't want to go down in Nazi territory anyway.
Yeah.
You really did not want to go down as a fighter pilot who happened to be Jewish.
Yeah.
And so, knowing that his wounded plane simply would not be able to make it back to its base in England, it was almost certainly impossible for that flight to have happened. He pointed the bomber towards Poland and told his navigator to head for Warsaw because he knew that the Russian front had advanced that far and had taken Warsaw.
Wow,
And
that's
so-
smart.
So if he could get to the Russian front,
He'd be safe. Ish.
well, not safe, but he wouldn't be in Nazi territory.
Right.
And I mean, this was one of those times where Russia was an ally.
Yeah.
And so the area was more of a no man's land at that time because it was so freshly liberated from the Nazis that there was every possibility that there were still Nazi snipers.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it wasn't necessarily clear if any troops remained. So he prepared his crew for an emergency landing and instructed them not to bail out unless he gave a direct order to do so. And keep in mind, this is a currently in the process of going down plane.
Oof, okay.
And so they're in the plane, they're throwing out ammunition, they're throwing out flak jackets, they're throwing out everything that could possibly protect them because they need that plane, which was a big fucking airplane. They needed that plane to be as light as it could possibly be if they were going to make it into
Warsaw.
Russian area.
Yeah.
So if they were going to make the Russian front, and it was questionable whether or not they were going to, They were leaking fuel. And it didn't look great.
It's not sounding great.
No. But they made it.
Oh.
They made it to Warsaw with no one injured but the plane.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, I love stories.
The plane was totaled.
Well, yeah.
But they made a belly landing in a potato field.
Nice.
And everyone survived.
That is... Oh, I love stories like that. That's so
Yep.
amazing.
And so they were kind of in the middle of nowhere. And...
But at least they were all together.
Yeah, and they started heading... And it was their whole company. So they trained together. Like, these were all people who knew each other well and trusted each other.
Yeah.
And so they marched themselves towards the village, yelling Amerikanski. I don't know if that's actually what you're supposed to yell, but I think it probably got the point across.
Yep.
And apparently, the reason that they were able to make the landing that they did, and this is a really cool detail that I just didn't know about, and I don't know that you would know about it unless you were talking to a specific person in this specific position. But they knew that they were in the right place because they saw one single plane, and it was, I think, a single engine plane that had a red star on it. And so they knew it was the Red Army. They knew it was the Russians. And they lit off flares as they were in the process of getting close to crashing. And apparently the flares that they let off were a friendly symbol. And so that Russian plane, wiggled itself at them like I'm picturing this tiny little hapless fish waving at something. Yep. And they just knew that what that meant was, all right, follow me.
Wow.
And so they did. And that is how they landed. Wow. And so they eventually got into this village, and they weren't prisoners, but they were greeted as heroes. It was a positive thing. They were cared for. They were fed. People were pleased that they existed, but they also weren't allowed to leave without the permission of the Red Army.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and so, I mean, I get that, but it's also, it's one of those gray areas where you don't entirely, you're working with somebody, but you don't necessarily like them all that much.
Right, but also they don't know the area, and they could lure... they could give away locate. You know what I mean? They could accidentally fuck up.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, they totally could. And so they made nice with the Russians, and they drank with them and, set up rapport, and the local villagers were super excited because their plane leaked fuel, and they needed fuel.
Yeah.
So they just let them take it.
Yeah.
And, because that seems like a fair trade to me.
Right.
You landed, you're going to be fed and taken care of. You're probably not going to get shot right now. So...
Go ahead, have the fuel.
Yeah, go ahead and take that. And so I guess it was a very weird situation where, the Russians would lend them weapons to do target shooting and stuff like that. And they would drink together, and they were... being put up in living quarters and being very well taken care of, but they couldn't leave.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there wasn't really any place for them to go at that moment. But, yeah, so it was sort of a weird thing. And, frankly, the Red Army was more concerned about whether or not there were still Nazis in the area.
Right.
And so it wasn't top priority to get them out of there.
Yeah.
And... there certainly wasn't an evacuation plane that was going to be allowed to come. So eventually, the story gets just straight up unbelievable.
Okay.
So Mr. Spiegel's crew teamed up with a second stranded American crew, who then bribed the Russians and pieced together working parts of both of their crashed aircrafts, and then they flew to an American airbase in Italy.
Okay.
Because, yeah, so, like, they had to move the engine from their crashed plane to the other plane. Like, and this is a bomber engine.
Right.
So they,
It's
yeah,
hard
they
enough to
bribed...
move a car engine alone.
Yeah, they bribed Russian soldiers to basically look the other way or to even help. So, like, with fountain pens and watches and...
Look, I have a zipper.
Somebody had, like, $30 in their wallet. Like, it was, and American money.
Here's a picture of my sister.
Yeah, like, it was just that. And so the Russians looked the other way when they got a tractor to move the engine from one airplane to another. They sort of whistled and looked at their feet as the two crews were assembling a fucking bomber.
Nothing to see here.
No, and then the day the engine was supposed to get dropped in, Spiegel went to go drink with the Russians because he didn't want it to be that visible.
Yeah.
What was going on? Because there's a knowing and looking the other way, but there's an overtness that wouldn't have been fine.
Yeah.
And so when they finally got it all set up, they were headed down the runway, and there was a Russian soldier waving frantically, being like, "No, don't do it, don't do it. Oh, no, please." And they did exactly zero about it.
Yeah.
So that happened, and I think that is kind of a delight. But
It
yeah,
is,
why
it's
don't you
exciting.
just piece together parts of two different bombers and then fly that shit to Italy? Why not? Yeah, I mean, it seems like the thing to do at the time. But, like, moving a car engine
Yeah.
is nearly impossible.
Like, I give them
How do you move the engine of a B-17 bomber?
so much credit, right?
And they weren't near each other.
Yeah, I can imagine not.
Yeah, I don't even know. So, I mean, I do know because I read the story, but I guess when you've got nothing to lose, you
Right?
do whatever needs to happen.
I mean, they're just hanging out. I mean, which was probably fun for a while, but you gotta be
Yeah, I
itching
think
to
it was
get back
nice.
to your, to your job at hand,
Well, the problem is that the Americans didn't know that they had landed.
Oh.
They were missing in action, presumed dead. Because the last thing that had happened was them radioing into England and letting them know the state of the engines, and that I think they let them know that they were headed towards, or that they were facing towards Poland.
Okay.
And that was the plan, and that's the last anyone ever heard from them.
Oh, wow.
And so for months, they had been missing in action, presumed dead, while they were partying with the Russians and making an escape plan with the second group of
I wanna see that
Americans that had
movie.
also crashed there. Yep. And, I mean, they had already been, like, it was so sure that they were dead that by the time Spiegel got back to his base, they had already shipped his belongings back home to New York.
Oh, wow. That poor
To
wife.
his widow and family.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And when he got back, he sent a very quick telegram and was just like, everything's fine. Love you. Bye. Not dead.
JK.
Yeah.
LOL.
Yep. Super not dead. It's fine. So, yeah. So he was quite something.
Yeah.
He flew his first bombing mission over Belgium at age 20, and this is probably something that people know in their minds, but probably haven't really thought through. But the survival rates for a pilot in the Air Force in World War II, especially a daytime bomber,
Oh, yeah.
because he was flying raids entirely in the light of day.
Oof.
That it wasn't, the odds weren't great.
Right.
You were probably going to die. And
I'm trying to remember, there was a certain number of missions, and if you hit that, you got to go home. Like, there was, and that's from, like,
I think that this is where we're headed, actually,
okay.
because that crash landing was not his last bombing raid.
Wow.
So I guess he was just apparently not having the whole survival rate thing and pulled a Harrison Ford and did it anyway. Nobody was telling him the odds. It was fine.
There you go.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. And a thing that really irritates me is that despite being a war hero, he started flying bombing raids as a first lieutenant, and he flew and survived 35 bombing raids on the Nazis. 35 daylight bombing raids and at least one crash landing. And he left the army a hero, but still a first lieutenant because
That's some
anti-Semitism.
bullshit. That is some bullshit.
Yeah. And then when he got back, he couldn't even be in the airline industry because they were just blatantly not hiring Jewish people following World War II.
Oh my God, I hate our country. Like, just,
Yeah. Yeah. So,
fucking war hero, but no.
yeah. But he took another solid plot twist at this point. And despite being a war hero and that not really helping anything, I mean, he helped defeat the Nazis.
Right?
But it didn't help him all that much when he got home. And then his subsequent divorce after returning home because it just wasn't working. And they didn't have children or anything. It was a clean break. It did not seem like it was drama. It just seemed like it didn't work for either of them. I mean, maybe there was drama. There's usually drama in some variety, but it seemed like a pretty clean break. He lived in the West Village.
Okay.
And I mean, his family had lived in the West Village. He was born there. He grew up there. His family owned a laundry there. But at that time, you were getting a little close to Beatnik era.
Yeah.
In the West Village in New York City. And so he did this beautiful, beautiful plot twist of joining Pete Seeger's Good Neighbor Chorus.
Yes.
And then went to Camp Unity a leftist camp in Wingdale, New York. And because his timing in his life is just fucking cinematic, he would then meet Motoko Ikeda, who was a Japanese-American woman with Japanese-born parents who would speak freely about spending time in a Japanese internment camp during the war. And she was like this artsy chick with pigtails. And
nice.
And he was like, I need to know more about you. And she was like, why, yes. And then 3 children later, a marriage,
Love it.
And his Jewish family welcomed his blended family with open arms. And
Love
they
it.
joked that his wife made Jewish food better than his mom did.
That's amazing.
That wasn't an insult. It was just true. And I think he said, there was a good quote in that New York Times article. I think he said that she could cook in any language.
Oh, that is...
Which I think is really cute.
That is adorable.
Yeah. But Pete Seeger, like, you're going to be a fighter pilot.
Yeah.
Okay? Like, you're going to be a bomber. And then be like, you know what? Now I'm going to go sing with Pete Seeger. I fucking love it.
You too.
I fucking love it. Yeah, and if you are listening and you don't know who Pete Seeger is, yes, you do.
Yeah.
Google him and you will know.
Yeah.
So here's where yet another plot twist comes in.
This guy.
Yeah.
I want to be his friend.
He's alive still.
Shut up. Oh.
Yeah. And he lives in my city.
Post-COVID, man.
He's 97, so...
It's fine. He's clearly meant to be around for a long time, so it's fine.
Oh, I agree. So here's where the Christmas trees come in. Now, you might be wondering, wait, isn't this guy Jewish?
Mm-hmm.
And the answer would be yes.
With an Asian
matter,
wife.
though. I mean, it's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, and they had a Japanese-Jewish household. Best of both worlds, which is kind of cool. And so because Mr. Spiegel couldn't find work in aviation because he was Jewish, he instead retrained and became a machinist at a brush manufacturer in Mount Vernon. And following a fad in storefront display windows that used like small multicolored brushes to create a wave effect, Mr. Spiegel's job was then to fabricate machines that made that kind of brush. And then the fad petered out, and the machines that they had been creating to make these brushes, which sold for, and we're talking 1950s dollars, I think $14,000 a pop.
Whoop.
Were suddenly not worth anything. Yeah, and so when his bosses first got the idea that they should make Christmas trees with these machines, they tried it, and it was an epic disaster. They looked terrible. And, like, it just didn't go anywhere. So Mr. Spiegel was sent to shut down the factory.
Okay.
Except that he was like, nah, there's money. There's money here.
Because Spiegel does
I know
what
that there's
Spiegel
money
wants to.
Yeah, well, they didn't argue with him. So, you know, the trees looked bad. Mid-century aesthetics of the 1950s were like, yo, aluminum. Like, it was a whole thing. And so his bosses were ready to give up. Spiegel was determined, and I guess his bosses didn't think that it would hurt anything to indulge him a bit, so he was granted his own division called American Tree and Wreath. And I think that the reason that this was allowed and the reason they're like, well, whatever, is because the U.S. economy was really the only world economy that was booming following World War II because we didn't get bombed.
Yeah. We didn't have to rebuild infrastructure.
Yeah, so we were rebuilding everybody else.
Yeah.
And so we were manufacturing the things that everybody was using to rebuild because we had that capacity. So, like, the post-war boom, like, that's how the baby boom came to be. Like, all of the things you think of as, like, the American dream happened because the U.S. factories weren't bombed out and everybody else's were.
Yeah.
So I think that that's why they were just like, whatever, that's fine. Because they weren't probably hurting for money at that moment. And also they probably trusted this guy. I mean, if they were sending him to shut down the factory, he obviously was a person with some sort of power.
Yep.
And so under his new division, called American Tree and Wreath, he brought in and studied real trees and continued to tweak and adjust his machines as needed until they produced real looking, perfectly made trees that were artificial but nearly identical to the real thing that he had been studying.
So are these like bottle brush trees then?
I don't think so. I think they're full-sized Christmas trees. But it's a little unclear because I couldn't find any photos.
That would make sense, though, because I can't imagine that it's all that difficult to make the leap from the waves and the brushes to the bottle. Like, the bottle brush trees are pretty simplistic and not...
Yeah.
They're pretty. I adore them. But they're not...
Oh, I like them, too.
Realistic.
And at this time, there had been previous attempts, I mean, even with this company, at making artificial trees. Though they... like vinyl material trees, those existed. Most people who were stylish had aluminum artificial trees at that time, and there's a whole story behind those too.
Which cracks me
I
up.
like Mr. Spiegel, so
I
we're
do
just
too.
sticking with him. So because he was able to make these beautiful artificial trees with the tools and materials that already existed there, he was able to, like, they rose in popularity very, very quickly. And he got his machines so tightly adjusted and just so thoroughly synced that they were able to, by the 1970s, produce 800,000 trees a year.
Damn.
With a finished tree rolling off the assembly line every 4 minutes.
That's impressive.
Yep. And so, with that success, he continued to expand and then started his own company.
Oh, Spiegel.
Which by 1993, now a multi-millionaire, he sold that business and retired.
Good for him.
And now, artificial trees that are the descendants of his original tree designs can be found in a staggering 3/4 of American homes. But Mr. Spiegel doesn't have one. Because even as a Jewish-Japanese blended family, they did have a tree growing up.
Okay.
Because his kids liked them.
Right.
And, I mean, he made them.
Right.
That was the thing he did. But his attitude about the trees, are something that just really hit me the right way, especially because today is Yule, solstice, and it's hitting my witchy vibes.
Yeah.
So, his thoughts on the subject of having a tree in his home when his kids were young were, do you think Christmas trees were really a religious symbol? They were pagan symbols. My kids liked them.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and so as of December 17th, 2021, so last week, he is still alive at 97 years old, and he still lives in New York City in an apartment overlooking Central Park.
And I want to have matzo ball soup with him.
Yeah, me too. He's still very much involved in veterans reunion groups, and as far as he knows, he's the only one that attends from this area who's a World War II veteran left.
I just want to hug him.
Yeah, and well, he still hits the gym every day. Like, he's one of those guys who you're just like,
he writes
all right.
A book. I hope that there's a whole book on this guy. Is there a book on him? There needs to be a book on him.
I don't know if there's a book on him specifically, but the person who wrote this article interviewed him extensively and was writing a book about, I think, Amelia Earhart, and happened to overhear him talking about Eleanor Roosevelt and how excited she had been about aviation.
Oh my goodness.
And like, they were like, oh my God, I'm writing a book about this thing. And
I have a feeling that if you did one interview with this guy, you would find a million reasons to continue to interview him. Like,
Oh yeah, I highly recommend reading the article that I'm linking to, because I hit the high spots and pulled from a few other articles, but there's just, like, I was going to branch into, like, aluminum trees and what happened when Charlie Brown happened and what it did to the artificial Christmas tree market, which was kill it. Yeah, and like, there's a whole lot, and maybe next year I'll do aluminum Christmas trees, but, like, this guy was just fascinating, and I couldn't stop reading about him.
Oh, I can see that. I would be the same way.
Yeah. Like, I demand a book, and it would surprise me greatly. I mean, this came out last week. If this person, I am confident, they write for the Times. They almost certainly, like, they are a former author, or they are an author of previous books. They almost certainly have a literary agent who's already talking to them.
Good. I will read it.
I mean, they've gotta. So, anyway, that is Si Spiegel.
Oh my God.
The Jewish World War II bomber and war hero who happens to be the reason that your artificial Christmas trees look so good.
I am so glad you did this story, because I now found yet another person in this world to love, and am super excited to read more about him, because yes.
Yeah, and full credit for much of the research in this episode definitely goes to Lori Gwen Shapiro, because she did amazing research, and her article was the reason that I was pulled in to this whole story. And so definitely go read what she's written.
Oh, I am.
Yeah. So that's that.
That was amazing. So I personally
It was fun.
am a sucker for twinkle lights and Christmas trees. Like, they make me ridiculously happy, and I wish that they were part of, like, normal decor all year round. Like, just swap out themes and colors as desired or seasonally. Like, and the more Griswold, the better. Like, I love me a sad little Charlie Brown tree. Like, I don't care. I will take it all.
Oh, if you're gonna do it, just bring it all in.
Exactly. So, whether you're a holiday decoration fan or not, I'm willing to bet that if you close your eyes and you're told to picture a Christmas tree, that tree has shiny, bright ornaments on it. And not just like ornaments that are shiny and bright, actual brand name shiny, bright ornaments on it. And today, I'm going to tell you the story.
Your grandparents' tree definitely still has them.
Oh, yes. So today I'm going to tell you the story of shiny, bright ornaments.
Yeah, I love this story. I'm so excited.
So
I stopped reading about it when you were going to do it so I could hear it.
So this story begins after World War I with Max Eckhart, a German born in 1890 that would be considered by many to be the father of American Christmas ornaments. There's not a whole lot, true to fashion of like some of the best stories we've been finding, there's not a whole lot on him in terms of anything outside of his legacy with Christmas ornaments.
Right.
But even though that he was from Oberlin, Germany, which was just 20 miles away from Lauscha, which was a hub for Glurman.
I see.
For German glass ornament makers. He actually first trained in the toy industry. And I would love to know more, but there's not a whole lot. So,
Spielzeug. That's toy in German, just in case you were wondering.
Nice. So, in 1926, though, he officially entered the ornament business with his brother Ernst opening a factory in Oberlin. The ornaments were intricate in design, and he had a bunch of relatives that worked for him and other employees, and they silvered and painted them by hand. Originally,
silvering is fascinating to me.
It really is. So
it's gotta kill you, right?
It's made with silver nitrate, so yeah, it's not something you really want to be, but yeah.
But your insides are so pretty.
They're shiny and bright.
Yeah, that autopsy is a fucking delight.
So, his company also had an office in New York City at 1107 Broadway, and ironically, that later became part of the International Toy Center. And he also had a warehouse by the Harlem River for storing ornaments that were imported from Bavaria. Max emigrated to New York City in the late 1920s. Now, initially, it was, they did a lot of just importing of the glass, ornaments that were being made in Germany. But in the late 1930s, Eckhart sensed that a possible war would, maybe affect the supply of ornaments. So in 1937, he founded the Shiny Brite Company, and him and a rep from F.W. Woolworth approached Corning Glass Company of New York to find a way to make American glass ornaments. Woolworth offered to place a very large order for its chain of stores if Corning could successfully modify their glass ribbon machine, which was originally designed to make light bulbs by the thousands, to produce Christmas ornaments. The machine switchover was actually a huge success, and molten glass was shaped into balls with the help of compressed air.
Oh, cool.
Right? And as it was a success, Woolworths upheld their word, and they ordered more than 235,000 ornaments in December of 1939. The first machine...
So it was literally glass blowing...
Right.
But by mechanical means.
Yep.
Instead of like injection molding or something.
Yep.
Cool.
It's very cool. So the machine, these were the first machine-made batches of glass ornaments like this. And it was shipped to Woolworth's 5 and 10 stores, and they sold for about 2 to 10 cents a piece. Now, in case you're wondering where the name come from, It was because the insides of the ornaments were coated with silver nitrate, so they would stay shiny season after season. And prior to prior to the machine usage, that was all done by hand. But even post machine, you're going to find a lot still done by hand. Anyway, Eckhart's fear proved pretty true, and Hitler's rise to power, along with the British blockade, stopped the import of European ornaments to the U.S. in 1939. Now, by 1940, Corning was producing about 300,000 unadorned ornaments per day.
Oh.
Yeah, they'd send the...
That's a lot.
Yep, and then they would send the glass balls to outside artists, including those at Max Eckhart's factory in New Jersey for decoration. The ornaments were then, were lined with the silver nitrate, we said. They were then run through a lacquer bath, and then decorated by his employees, and finally packaged in brown cardboard containers. The ornaments were originally just simple silver, but eventually he produced them in a large variety of colors. Classic red, which was the most popular ornament color in 1940s, and I believe the sole ornament that hangs on the Charlie Brown Christmas tree is an official Shiny Brite red ornament. Green.
I didn't know that.
Gold.
I like it.
Pink and blue, both in solids and stripes. And then there was they were also offered in a variety of shapes inside the balls, including tops and bells and icicles, teardrops, trees, pine cones, and even Japanese lanterns. And some were decorated with mica, which was to look like snow. I can't think of a better way to put it, but a lot of them have what kind of like a fancy belly button. And I remember when I was little, I stuck my thumb right in there and broke that darn ornament because I was like, what is this?
I have stuck my finger in a Shiny Brite ornament.
I mean, I think almost every kid has. So
my grandma had the ones that were sort of teardrop shaped with the very 1950s extended thing going down, and boy, did those like to break.
Oh, absolutely. I know I have some in storage. I have some really amazing ones from our family. Now, during World War II, there was an issue because lacquer paint and silver lining totally scarce. So Eckhart had to pivot, and that's when he started making some clear ornaments with thin pastel stripes, which didn't require as much pigment, and metal caps and hooks were also like a no-go because they needed all of that metal for the war. So it was replaced with cardboard caps, and then people would string them with yarn to hang. Some ornaments came with a tiny sprig of tinsel inside. I'm sure that you've seen those. But eventually, even that small bit of metal inside was prohibited during the war.
My grandma had the cardboard topped ones, my dad's mom, and with the yarn, and I didn't know that. I always thought that they had just lost them and replaced it with something that looked shitty.
Nope, that was wartime. Now, after the war,
that makes sense.
The crimped metal caps did return, and this time with the addition of the words Shiny Brite, made in the USA on top. As part of the rebuilding effort, the U.S. government shipped Eckhart and his son, Harold, off to West Germany, hoping to breathe new life in the German glass ornament industry. And they set up a factory there in Wellenfels, and they named it Lanissa, after Max's three granddaughters, Elle for Lynn, Anne for Anne, and Issa for Allison, whose nickname was Lissa. Which I thought was very sweet. Stateside, Corning continued to crank out Shiny Brite ornaments. By the 1950s, production reached a rate of 1,000 per minute. But the machines also now painted the ornaments as well. So the 1950s was like the Shiny Brite heyday. Like that was like the peak of sales for them, to the point where Eckhart
so much glitter,
so much glitter, where Eckhart actually opened 4 New Jersey factories just to keep pace with the demand. In 1955, Thor, a Chicago washing machine manufacturer, purchased the company, which eventually produced about 75% of the ornaments sold worldwide.
A washing machine company?
Yep, named Thor, no less.
Like you do.
So Eckhart died, sadly, in late 1961. It was during the early 1960s that Emigsville appeared on the scene. So former general manager Andy Wowitz indicated that the company moved to Emigsville because of its proximity to Corning and the McCrory Company, plus having a railroad siding, which helped with the cross-country shipments. A local newspaper article dated May 13, 1964, announced that the manufacturer of the Christmas tree ornament sold under the name Shiny Brite was to build a plant in Manchester Township and expected to employ 300 persons. The Eckhart and Sons division of Phillips Eckhart. Now, at one point prior to World War II, there was, not only was it produced, the ornaments called Shiny Brite, but at one point they were produced, Max Eckhart and Sons were on the boxes. But obviously, World War II, people were not loving the Germans. So Max Eckhart and Sons was taken off of the boxes at that point. So they were consolidating operations located in several eastern cities and just kind of plunking down there. The division was described as the largest manufacturer and importer of Christmas tree ornaments in the U.S. The plant had 269,000 square feet, located on 25-acre plot off of Aberdeen Road. The factory was to cost $1.6 million, with machinery and equipment moving in shortly after November 1st of 1964. Rowett said that the factory was equipped with elaborated automated silvering, lacquering, and decorating production lines. Although the glass balls were still purchased from Corning, the very ornate hand-painted ornaments were imported from Germany. The balls were packaged in dozens and boxes of a dozen each, and I'm sure they came up with that iconic box. Like anytime you see that box, cardboard with the clear on the top, that started with Shiny Brite.
That's smart marketing.
Right. There were many combinations and assortments for available, though, for store chains, and 5 and 10 cent stores like Woolworth and McCrory still loved to carry them. The company employed 280 people in 3 shifts, and they actually produced year-round, and they stored inventory for the Christmas season of October through December, and sometimes an early snow in October or November would help increase the sales.
That makes sense.
Mid-1960s, the company hired representatives from Revlon to promote and advertise worldwide sales by using TV. The program made Shiny Brite a household name in the U.S. To save on labor costs because of increasing competition from Taiwan, a group of engineers from Mattel was hired to automate the production process. Which is so weird because I would not think of, lipstick
like
and Barbie.
Like Barbie Mattel?
Yeah. I would not think of lipstick and Barbie of having any kind of, role in this. But yeah.
No. All right.
But both the Revlon advertising and the Mattel automation efforts cost a lot of money and sadly did not produce the desired results. So sales remained...
So it made them a household name, but it didn't make them enough money?
Yep, because it cost so much to do. So sales remained flat, and the business was sold to Ekmar, which was like a big conglomerate. A shortage of space for ornament inventory in the 1970s required erecting 2 huge 320-foot-long air-inflated buildings in the parking lot to store ornaments. Now, I am not an engineer... But just uttering that statement, I'm thinking that's not a good idea. But hey, So...
No, I feel pretty no thank you about that.
Yep. And as such, a 1-inch per hour cloudburst on the 4th of July of 1970 caused a little stream to back up at the railroad culvert and flooded the entire thing, collapsing the inflated buildings. Oh my goodness. $1 million worth of inventory was destroyed.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Shiny Brite was then sold to Polaron in about 1974 and then was moved to Georgia. Continuing pressure from imports resulted in the company going out of business in the early 80s. But Knight Ridder newspapers posted an article December 24th of 2004 stating that Christopher Radko, who was a holiday designer, bought the Shiny Brite name in the late 1990s and started selling the replicas or reproductions of the old Shiny Brite glass ornaments in 2001. So how do you tell the difference between a vintage and a replica?
Yeah, there are lots of replicas available now. I think Crate and Barrel sells them.
Oh yeah, they're all over. Target even sells them. You can get
brand.
Yep.
Like Shiny Brite brand.
Shiny Brite brand.
Name.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So according to Blue Moon estate sales, Shiny Brites can be dated and the styles differentiated by checking the topper and the decorations as follows. The late 1930s ones had silver tone metal toppers. They were orbs and shapes, hand-decorated clear and colored glass, silver nitrate-coated interiors, Americanized Santa shapes, and an early Art Deco style. The early 1940s were spheres, bells, pyramids, reflectors, pine cones, acorns, oblongs, and diamond shapes with metal cap
pyramids.
Yeah, I don't know that. I'd have to look that up because I don't know that I've ever seen that, and I'm not exactly sure what a reflector one looks like. Metal cap toppers, hand decorated exteriors. World War II eras, you got your cardboard or paper toppers with yarn hangs, non-silvered transparent orbs with possibly with tinsel inside. And non-silver transparent or opaque orbs with simple pastel hand-painted. Boxes often featured Santa shaking hands with Uncle Sam, because America.
Yeah. The reflector ones are the ones that you stick your finger in.
That makes sense. 1950s, they're colorful orbs and shapes. Once again, the silver nitrate is back, coating the interiors. They're machine decorated, though, and they have crimped, scalped metal toppers marked Made in the USA and Shiny Brite. If you want to get your hands on replicas, there's some really fancy ones you can get at ChristopherRadco.com. West Elm stores carry them. Target carries them. They're still all over. And they're still pretty iconic. Like, even the Halloween ones, they just look like Shiny Brite. There's no doubt of what they are. And
yeah, they're a very specific feel.
Right.
Not even a very specific look, although that's true. They just evoke a very specific feeling.
Right. Like, when you look at them, you're like, uh-huh. Like, that's...
Like, yeah, that obviously that is what that is. And you know the difference.
Right. And it's pretty amazing that they have withstood decades and decades and crossed all socioeconomic, like, anybody that has, even if you don't celebrate Christmas but you've seen a tree, you know the ornaments. Like, it's such an odd little thing to be so universally known and still, you know, a part of holiday celebrations. Like, the world over.
Every Christmas movie you've ever seen, like, those, they are the quintessential Christmas ornament. Yeah. That's what Christmas ornaments look like.
I love that you can get them in different colors now. I love that they're still around. I love that there's a Halloween line of them. I love, I love all of that.
And I like vintage things, and I mean, obviously, but the actual antique ornaments are, at this point in time, very brittle.
Yes.
And very, very fragile.
And
I mean, sometimes they just give up,
Yeah.
even if nothing has happened to them.
Yep.
So, I love that there are reproductions because they're so much safer to use and not have to worry that you're going to look at it the wrong way and it's going to explode.
Right. And granted, they're more expensive than they were initially. They're still reasonably priced. I mean, you're still, you know, even on like West Elm, which is not the cheapest store in the world. I want to say it was like $20 for the box a dozen, which is not bad.
That's cheap.
Yeah. So it's, you know, and given how they will be passed down, you know, because even the replicas, that's still going to be passed down to generation to generation to generation.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And they're just so them. I did not like them when I was younger. I was like, oh my gosh, these are the tackiest thing I have ever seen in my life. And now I'm just like, oh, they remind me of Christmas at Grandma.
Yes, yeah.
But oh boy, did I think they were tacky. But now I would totally do a full tree in just those, but I am trying not to start down that path because down that path is me having to buy all new ornaments.
And then store them and all that stuff.
Yeah, and, you know, closets don't exist in New York City.
Hang them from the ceiling.
I'm not kidding. There's a closet in my apartment, just one, and it's tiny, and it was built in. It's not original to the building.
Oh my.
There are no closets. And I share a 4-foot wide wardrobe with my husband.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So no new ornaments. Well, at least not an entire redo. So I believe...
Now I want them all.
I believe that brings us to...
Is it the weekly
worst
way to die?
It is.
Oh. What's yours?
Mine is accidentally severing a major vein or artery during a, like, ornament breakage incident.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Ouch.
That would be ouch. But, you know, at the same time, like, it would be, like, you know, or falling on, like, the Christmas star. You know what I mean? Like, it would be...
I mean, I have one of those atomic age tree toppers that have all of the extending God knows what out of them. So I feel like you could die from that.
Yeah. There's a way I would accidentally find it.
Yeah, you could figure it out.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yep. What about you?
Being trapped in a festive snow globe.
Oh, that would suck. Oh, I don't, yeah.
Yeah, getting packed away every year, sitting in the dark in a fucking snow globe. Everything's always cheerful. That Santa Claus or that snowman, just the paint wears off a little bit more every time you turn over the snow globe, but it's not noticeable in real time. I've thought about this a lot.
Even worse,
as you can see.
a musical snow globe.
Yeah, that was what I was picturing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, it sucks. So, hey, do you want to be spooky internet friends?
Not if you're going to put me in a snow globe.
Never. Oh, God.
Okay.
And most of them have glitter. Your other favorite thing. Oh, no.
I hate them. Have you ever broken a snow globe?
No.
Because I have.
Oh, no.
They're not filled with water, in case you did not know that. It's mineral oil.
That makes sense. Because I know to make
Because
them...
that's why things fall as slowly as they do.
Yeah, I think when you make them, it's usually like glycerin and water. But mineral
Yeah, it's a
makes
fucking
sense.
mess.
Yeah. Oof.
Do not recommend.
No, but I do recommend that you find us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, TikToks, all over the place at Bones and Bobbins, or just visit us at visit us at bonesandbobbins.com.
Yes, and don't forget to rate and review this podcast. It pleases the festive internet gremlins and helps us show up in recommendations so that other morbid souls can find us. And you have just highlighted it. Are you going to delete it while we read it again?
No. Reinforce the morbid souls. And on that note, let us leave you with some advice, because clearly we are wise.
Very.
That you should never forget.
Mm-mm.
Lock your doors.
And don't run with scissors.
Each episode of the Bones and Bobbins podcast is written and researched by Haley Pierson-Cox and Natalie Hoyce. Our music was composed by Loyalty Freak Music. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Bones and Bobbins. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, follow us on Spotify, or check us out wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts so you won't miss a minute of our strange and creepy content.